You have class
Okay.
Where you okay. We're waiting for you, so are you ready?
Yeah, go for it.
Will there be a red light on your camera? Or?
I don't think so. It's already rolling.
Okay. Well, thanks for being here, and I am glad that we had this hearing today, and I did think it was appropriate that Representative Rushi filed a letter that he did, and that there's been an opportunity here for a public hearing, and wasn't actually a public hearing, but to present this in front of the public, and to be able to ask the questions and to do some investigation, and to get some of this out in the open. And so for that reason, I don't have any criticism whatsoever for Representative Rushi, and I am glad that we did have the meeting today. One thing that I hope happens as a result of today's vote is I hope that we don't have future possible candidates who want to run for office scared away from the electoral process, because I guarantee you there will be few people who are going to look at this event and what's happened with me, and to the degree that there's been the public attention that this has gotten, that will think that, well, maybe I won't run for office, and maybe I'm just going to decline that opportunity. And I think if we shrink the pool of people who do run for office, that we are all worse off. Whether we're Republican, Democrat, or an independent, I think we're worse off if we do shrink that pool of those who run for office. I did expect the charge on the Rule 38 to be dismissed, and I do appreciate those of you who have looked into the votes I've made in the past and scrutinized those things, and I actually appreciate Betsy for bringing a couple of things up ahead of time so that they didn't come up in the hearing, and that there would be a surprise for me. And I don't think there's a connection there between those votes that I made and some unique personal circumstances that I had. I think that there is a disconnect between my personal circumstances and any of the votes that happen to have come before the legislature in the last year. And I do have a couple of letters I want to put out. I've been working on these for weeks. They took me a lot of time. One is a letter from a CPA in the Post Falls area that he has gone through various financial records of mine, and he has determined that in the last 5 years I have paid $120,079.71 in state and federal income tax. And he was pretty diligent about looking through those records and double checking every payment. And so that letter will be passed out to you, and I don't know, does Susan have that? And oh, you've already got it. Okay. And then the second letter is from another CPA, and he has looked at the 8 years worth of tax returns I was audited on by the IRS, and he has verified that, yes, in fact, Mr. Hart did lose all his business deductions for those 8 years. And he has pointed out in his letter that that's very untypical. I mean, how can you have a professional in business with 0 business deductions for 8 years? And if you were to, or if I were to get those deductions back, the amount that might be owed both at the state and the federal level is greatly diminished. And that's the battle that I'm continuing to fight. And I wish I hadn't been fighting that particular battle right now, because if that issue were taken off the table, if I had been allowed my reasonable business deductions, this whole chapter of my life would have likely been wrapped up at least 3, maybe even 4 years ago. And I'm very anxious for this chapter of my life to be wrapped up so I can move on and do other things with my time that I feel are more productive. And so you've got the 2 letters, and with that I'll answer any questions that you've got.
Representative Hart, there was an issue that was brought up in the Ethics Committee today that we hadn't heard about before, regarding a bill that was killed on a tie vote in the Revenue Tax Committee, having to do with statutes and limitations. How did you vote on that bill, and why?
I voted against that bill, and that bill had to do with issuing refunds to folks who were entitled to a refund, but because of some set of circumstances hadn't asked for that refund yet. And I thought if they're entitled to a refund, there shouldn't be a statute of limitations on it. They should be able to get that irregardless of when they ask for it. And the scenario that I was most worried about was widower or widow whose spouse might have passed away, maybe had some dealings that they weren't aware of, and over the years those might have come to light. They discovered they were entitled to a refund and would have been barred from that refund had that bill gone through.
Representative, there was a lot of discussion in the Ethics Committee today about perceptions. And the members of the committee each shared, those who had declared Rule 38 in the past, shared the reasons and the circumstances under which they had invoked the rule. And a lot of it was about perceptions, that they were in a position where there might be a perception that they had a conflict, even if the witness had a direct. Did it change your mind at all, listening to what they had to say today, about when you might declare a conflict?
Well, I think that is a troubling road to go down, to have a disciplinary action based on perceptions.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think that this hearing we had today just draws some awareness on the issue. But I think as citizen legislators, we all do something else for a living. We're not professional politicians. We don't have legal staff. And I think we need to have some flexibility and some deference to the members to not draw those lines too tightly. Otherwise, as like I said, or what like was pointed out in the committee meeting, we're going to spend half our time on the floor declaring Rule 38 conflicts, and we won't get anything done.
You said it at the beginning of the attention that became focused on all of this, that you felt that your experiences have made you a better person. Do you still think that?
Well, I think I have some unique life experiences that relate to the tax issue, and the primary thing that I am struggling right now is the denial of my business deductions for 8 years. And I think that I mean, the letter speaks for itself from the CPA, Mr. Wayne Paul, and you can read that letter and if you want to quote him. But I think that taxpayers want to be treated fairly, and I want to be treated like the average taxpayer. And I understand I wrote a book on the issue, and I popped my head up above the crowd, if you will, and I've been shot at, and I don't regret that, but I do think that I should be treated like any other taxpayer insofar as those deductions are concerned. Now, whether or not I get audited again, you know, that's sort of probably comes with the territory for who I am and what I've done, but I do think, as every other taxpayer is entitled to deductions, I should be too. How about someone other than Betsy? See, I don't want her to think she's my favorite.
She's absolutely mine.
Betsy, if you got another one, we'll do it.
Sure, I got all kinds.
I have a question.
Sure.
Representative Hart, you said you thank Representative Rushi for bringing these questions to light, even though he was the minority leader, the Democrat opposition to the Republican majority. But we saw today in committee that we had a party line vote. If there had been one more Democrat, Rushi, on that panel instead of a Republican, you very well could be facing a recommendation that you be punished. Would you, do you have any opinion on the partisanship that we may have seen today?
Well, thanks for the question. And you know, Representative Rushi is a physician and a part-time legislator, and I don't know why he wasn't here today. You know, he might have had some professional conflict with that insofar as his work is concerned. But I think the issue got an adequate hearing, and I think we heard, you know, voices from both sides, and I think the decision was right. I don't think there has been a conflict with any of the votes I've taken, and particularly the ones that were examined closely. And I hope that the public tuned in and they heard the testimony. I think arguments were made on both sides, and I think the argument that prevailed was the right one. And I hope the public listened to that, and I hope that they can come down on the same side of that issue.
Well, I have another question. I'll follow up on the perception question. Something that Representative Jenkins said is that she was talking about the perception, and she said the way taxpayers that I represent see it, they're paying taxes and you aren't. What do you say to that? I mean, what's your response when you hear something like that?
Well, my response is, please read the letter that I just gave you. which identifies that